I was continuing my Vietnam adventure and had 3 more days in Ho Chi Minh City. I visited some of the top sites and discovered a few hidden gems, all the while enjoying incredible Vietnamese cuisine that ranged from street food to Vietnam's most famous pizzeria. Plus, I got out of the city briefly to visit the Cu Chi tunnels, which was quite the experience. After an incredible meal at the Michelin-starred Coco Dining, I was feeling good that night. So good, in fact, I didn't sleep that well later when I went to bed. As a result, when I woke up the next day, I needed coffee, strong coffee. So I went to the cafe right across from my hotel, known as Hoang Tuan. I got a glass of pure black coffee and quickly realized why Vietnamese coffee is almost always paired with condensed milk, because it's as strong as could be. That was basically rocket fuel and may not be suited for everyone, but for me, it worked just fine. In addition, I was given some mystery liquid, which I'm not really sure what it was, but it had a subtle and pleasant floral flavor. To eat, I got a croissant, which was just okay. Regardless, I was adequately caffeinated and fueled for the day. I first checked out the Ho Chi Minh City Fine Arts Museum. While the site may not be one of the top tourist attractions in the city, the building was right near my hotel and a ticket only set me back 30,000 Vietnamese dong, which was a little more than $1 US. The artwork, which was spread out among multiple buildings, was interesting and included many beautiful pieces which ranged from Vietnamese paintings and sculptures along with archaeological artifacts. My favorite aspect of the institution, however, were the buildings themselves. They were beautiful. As an architecture lover, I really appreciated that facet, and as a result, I took a ton of photos. Without a doubt, I definitely got my $1.14 worth. So that was a nice art museum. I really enjoyed myself. Now, I appreciated the art, but what I really enjoyed was the actual buildings. They were just stunning. Plus, I also liked that the ticket was just over $1. I love these Vietnamese prices. Anyways, it is now lunchtime, and I decided to go to one of the most popular restaurants in all of Vietnam, Pizza for Peas. Pizza for Peas labels itself as a Vietnamese-based Japanese-Italian pizza restaurant. Yeah, that's a lot of influences. I've had such a craving for pizza these last few days because there's been all that news about that one Tokyo-based Japanese pizza restaurant that will soon open in New York City, and Japanese-style pizza, it's nearly perfection. Right now I'm on the wait list of Pizza for Peas, and hopefully I hear back from the restaurant soon because I am really, really hungry. After about a 45-minute wait, my table at the restaurant was ready. Once I was seated, I took in the space, which I certainly thought had a good look to it. There are multiple Pizza for Peas throughout Ho Chi Minh City and Vietnam in general. I went to the location right across from the Ben Thanh Market. After getting settled, I began to explore the menu, which was massive. While pizza is the focus of the establishment, there's also a wide variety of pastas and appetizers. It was a bit overwhelming. Everything just looks so good. In terms of beverages, the restaurant even makes their own beer. I decided to get the premium lager, which proved to be tasty and refreshing, complete with a subtle hoppiness to it. Before any of the courses I ordered came to my table, I was given a basket of bread, which seemed just like crispy pizza crust. It was better than I thought it would be. The crunch was nice, and the bread overall had more flavor than I was expecting it to. Soon enough, I was presented with my appetizer, which was the clam chowder. Now, it wasn't my first choice. Originally, I asked for the Italian meatball soup, but unfortunately, they were out of it for the day. Nevertheless, that was a pretty good clam chowder. Although I would have preferred if it was a bit less watery, I still enjoyed that dish. Next was the main event. I got one of the restaurant's signature pizzas, the burrata Parma ham margarita. On top of the pie was a generous serving of burrata, which my server then sliced and spread upon the pizza, and it looked fantastic. At first, I ate that dish by hand, then switched to a knife and fork, but no matter how I ate it, my opinion was the same. That was an excellent pizza. It was perfectly baked, resulting in a texturally satisfying crust, but the true highlight for me were the toppings. The rich and creamy burrata paired perfectly with the savory ham. I loved that pizza, and out of 10, I would give it an 8.3. Overall, I really enjoyed Pizza for Peas, and was thrilled to hear after my trip that the first US outpost of the restaurant will be opening soon in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which I can't wait to try. Once I finished, I was presented with the bill, which totaled to a bit over 600,000 dong. With the USD conversion rate on that particular day, I paid a total of $23.30. After lunch, it was time for my afternoon caffeine hit, but I didn't go to just any old cafe. I went to one of the most elevated coffee shops in the city, XLIII Specialty Coffee. Since the cafe's windows were tinted black, I was not prepared for the stark minimalist gallery on the ground floor of the shop. Yeah, XLIII Coffee is different. I then made my way upstairs where the action really unfolds. After taking a seat, my barista showed me the cafe's coffee selection and explained each of the offerings. Unlike most of Vietnam, XLIII Coffee mainly uses imported Arabica beans from all over the world instead of the local Robusta variety. After reading up on all the various offerings, I made my selection, which was the competition coffee 2. I then had to decide on the brewing method and went with a filter pour-over, which my barista prepared right in front of me. During this whole experience, I was really reminded of some of the specialty coffee shops I went to in Japan, like Glitch and Coffee Mamaea. Just like those spots, XLIII Coffee really added a level of connoisseurship to coffee that I really appreciated. Once my beverage was ready, I gave it a go and wasn't disappointed. That was some fine coffee indeed, and I was truly able to taste the pure character of the bean. I loved it. However, that coffee didn't come cheap, as it set me back 250,000 dong, but with the conversion rate of that specific day, I paid a total of $8.56. Out of my 3 weeks in Vietnam, that was the only place I considered to be expensive, but for me, as an extreme coffee lover, I thought that it was worth it. It's not your everyday cafe, but for coffee connoisseurs, it's a must visit. After my caffeine hit, it was time once again for sightseeing. I went to the historic Notre Dame Cathedral to see its brilliant facade, which was unfortunately mainly covered in scaffolding. Well, you can't win 'em all. Thankfully, another of the city's most notable landmarks is right across the street. It's the Saigon Central Post Office. The structure was built during the years of French colonialism at the end of the 19th century. Often, Gustave Eiffel, the architect of the Eiffel Tower, is mistakenly credited as the architect of the post office, but he really had nothing to do with the structure that stands there today. Inside, the building is just as stunning, and I particularly appreciated the 2 maps on the walls. Now, the building isn't just for show, it's still a working post office, and you can even send letters from there. After the post office, I wandered over to Ho Chi Minh's famous Book Street. As a book lover, I was particularly excited about exploring that area. Numerous bookstores line the pedestrian-only street. Now, I did think it was a bit touristy, and the books were, unsurprisingly, mostly written in Vietnamese. Still, I appreciated it for what it was. Next, I went to see a few more notable Saigon landmarks, which included probably one of the most beautiful in the city, the Ho Chi Minh City Hall. The building, which is recognized as a National Architectural Monument, was completed in 1909 and is absolutely stunning. Then, I headed over to the nearby Saigon Opera House, which proved to be another gorgeous example of French colonial architecture. At that point, it was about dinner time, but I wasn't too hungry. The pizza I had at lunch was fairly filling, so obviously I got more pizza. Although, that pizza wasn't like anything that I was used to. In Vietnam, it's a popular street food known as bánh tráng nhún. The dish is made with a crispy sheet of rice paper and is topped with basically whatever. My particular pizza contained items like a quail egg, pork, shrimp, cheese, vegetables, and a spicy sauce. The result felt more like a crispy quesadilla rather than a pizza, but nevertheless, I really liked it. So So that was a good snack. I really enjoyed that. The filling was very tasty and the rice paper had a very satisfying crisp. Now in most circumstances that would not suffice for a full meal for me, but I was pretty full after my lunch today. Although I could still go for a dessert, I would like something cold like ice cream. So let's see what I can do about that. After a quick Google search, I came across an ice cream shop known as Creme, which offered some very unique flavors like durian ice cream, pho ice cream, and fish sauce caramel, which was what I got. In fact, that wasn't the first time I got that type of ice cream on my trip. Just days earlier, I had a very fancy version of it at the Michelin-starred Anon Saigon. While Creme's offering couldn't compare with the fine dining dish I had earlier, it nevertheless satisfied my sweet tooth for that night. So I'm back at the hotel. That was some solid ice cream. It hit the spot. Now I'm just gonna chill. I've got a beer. I'm gonna do some reading, and then I'm just gonna call it a day. And it was a good day indeed. It was a big day for me in Saigon, as I would be joining a tour later that would take me across the country. But first, it was coffee time. I went to Cộng Cà Phê, which had a really nice outdoor setup. I got a Saigon coffee with condensed milk, and it was the perfect beverage to kick off my morning. Unfortunately, the cafe didn't seem to have any food, so I went to a nearby bakery called Maison Song Anh and picked up a pain au chocolat. That pastry completed my breakfast, and then it was time to check out of the hotel and join my tour. I had to journey to Phan An Backpackers Hostel, which wasn't too far and in most cities would be an easy walk. However, Saigon is a different story, because even walking on the sidewalk, I had to constantly dodge parked motorbikes and crowds of people, which was made even more strenuous with my luggage, but thankfully, I eventually made it to the hostel where I was able to drop off my bag. The tour didn't officially start until later, so I had the morning and afternoon to myself. First, I checked out a local market, which was right next to the hostel. I found it to be incredibly interesting and I enjoyed getting some good photos of it. Then I headed back to the city center and lunch was on my mind, so I went to McDonald's. Yes, I know, it's a very authentic Vietnamese restaurant, but in all seriousness, I mainly went there for the air conditioning. It was hot out. Plus, I was definitely intrigued by the food. The restaurant's menu is very different from its US counterparts. For example, they have a whole category of spaghetti dishes. After placing my order, I found a table, and soon enough, my food arrived. Of course, I just had to try that spaghetti, which was kinda giving school lunch vibes, but it wasn't bad. In fact, I found it more enjoyable than Jollibee spaghetti. Plus, the mystery meat on top of the pasta was perfectly alright for a mystery meat. Although, my favorite aspect of that lunch was the fried chicken, and I got two different kinds. The chicken also came with gloves, but I kept those on the side and dove right in. First, I tried the garlic fish sauce fried chicken, and it was easily the highlight of my meal. While I didn't think that the offering was as good as, say, Popeyes or Jollibee, for example, it was nevertheless pretty satisfying for fast food fried chicken. It was fresh and had a good crisp, but I particularly enjoyed the funky and flavorful garlic fish sauce covering the meat. The other piece of chicken was a spicy version, and it was decent as well. Although I didn't think that it was the strongest spice, it nevertheless was solid. After lunch, it was back to sightseeing. I decided to check out the Museum of Ho Chi Minh City. Outside the institution was some fascinating military equipment. Inside, there were exhibits that covered a wealth of topics, which ranged from Saigon's history to some sort of communism showcase. There was also a display of some of the former currencies of the country, and there was a particularly interesting exhibit on the Vietnam War. Just like the city's Fine Arts Museum, the institution is housed in a very historic and beautiful building, which I really enjoyed taking photos of. In fact, there were a number of people there getting wedding photos. Overall, I had a fine time at the Museum of Ho Chi Minh City. Then it was time for my afternoon caffeine hit, so I went to a nearby location of Highlands Coffee. My cool beverage was indeed refreshing, but the most interesting thing of that experience was the salted egg sponge cake that I got. It was nice and fluffy and both sweet and savory. That was a solid treat for sure. Once I finished, I returned to the hostel and checked in for my tour. After a group meeting, which explained how the tour will unfold, we headed out for dinner. We dined at a spot called A Taste of Saigon. I got a beer along with grilled snakehead fish with rice paper and noodles. Snakehead isn't something I have very often, especially since it's considered to be an invasive species in the US, so it was nice to enjoy that dish. After dinner, we went out as a group, and Ho Chi Minh City certainly has some energetic nightlife. I didn't film much at that point, mainly because I was doing my best to socialize with the group, but my day certainly ended strong. After getting a somewhat mediocre night of sleep, it was time for breakfast, and for a hostel breakfast, the spread was quite good. Then we headed out as a group to the Cu Chi tunnels for a sort of half-day trip. The tunnels themselves aren't actually that far distance-wise from Ho Chi Minh City, but because of Saigon's crazy traffic, it did take a while to get there. In fact, our tour guide joked that rush hour in Ho Chi Minh City is from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., but I'm not quite sure that was a joke. Nevertheless, it was a scenic ride. Finally, we made it to our destination. The Cu Chi Tunnels is a massive tunnel system that was used during the Vietnam War by the Viet Cong soldiers. They served as both hiding spots and supply routes. Today, the tunnels are a popular tourist destination, and yes, you can go in the tunnels, but it's not for the claustrophobic. At the start of the tour, there were these small holes which served as hiding spots, and most of my group didn't feel like jumping in, but I gave it a go. The hole was very narrow, and in fact, a lot of people aren't physically able to fit in it. It was a little unnerving at first, lowering myself into total darkness, but once I was in, it wasn't that bad. Travel is all about making memories and having new experiences, and that was definitely a new experience for me. We also learned how soldiers lived, set traps, and ate. Plus, we actually got to crawl through a portion of the tunnels, which once again is definitely not for the claustrophobic, as they were dark and narrow, and you literally had to crawl on your hands and knees to get through them. Overall, the Cu Chi tunnels proved to be a unique and fascinating attraction. After a long ride back to Saigon, I had little time left in the city as our tour group would be leaving just hours later by train. My first priority was lunch, so I stopped at the nearest street vendor to pick up a banh mi, which hit the spot. Next, I wanted to get coffee, and I went to a very unique place for it, the Cafe Apartment. It's a 9-story building filled with various cafes and boutique shops. I first wanted to get a lay of the land, so I walked up and down every floor before settling on a coffee shop. I ended up choosing a place called Gom Saigon, which was not only a cafe, but a pottery shop as well. As a result, there were beautiful ceramics all over the space, which had an incredible atmosphere. It's also a very traditional shop, which meant I had to take my shoes off to enter. For my order, I got a traditional Vietnamese drink, salted cream coffee, which looked beautiful. From a flavor perspective, the combination of salty and sweet was a delightful contrast. In addition, I got a sweet snack, a berry tiramisu, which proved to be a pleasant treat indeed. Overall, I really enjoyed that cafe. I managed to relax a bit, I got some reading done, and reflected on my time in Ho Chi Minh. So far, I was truly having an incredible adventure, and while my Saigon chapter was at an end, my Vietnam trip was really just getting started. After finishing, I made my way back to the hostel, but I realized I should probably eat something more if I'm going to be on a train the whole night. As a result, I went to Burger King, and I'm not happy about that one. However, I only had about a half hour before I needed to meet back up with my group, so I had to make do. The food, frankly, sucked, but at least I was filled up. Finally, I boarded a train with my tour, said my goodbyes to Saigon, and was whisked away to the north where more adventure awaited me.